So last season, with the 43rd pick in the NFL draft, the Giants drafted Wan'Dale Robinson, a guy who many people thought would not be going in round 2, so they drafted him early round 2. It was a bit of a surprise. Well, let's talk about what the expectations were for him going in, what the reality was through year 1, and maybe where he can get better, where he can get worse. What's the make of his career this early on into it? So first, if we look at his Pro Football Focus page, this is him in college. So before he entered the league, you see that towards the left, those were his PFF grades for the last 3 years he was in the league. And, in 388 pass snaps, he was good in 2021. Definitely a one-year wonder, but, hey, a grade above 90, that's definitely going to get it done. You also notice the amount of slot snaps there. I mean, he only had 108 snaps out wide in 2021, and only 28 and 22 total out wide snaps in each of 2020 and 2019, respectively. So this is a guy with just, in the past 3 years in college, just barely over 150 snaps that weren't in the slot. Despite that, he had incredible production with high PFF grades, so he was winning consistently. And also, if you look at the thing all the way to the top right of your screen, the yards per route run, that's 3.56. That's incredible. I mean, you see that dot is all the way over towards the right. He was as good as anybody in terms of getting yards per route ran in the NFL, in college, his last year in college. So there were things to statistically like about him. But one thing I do say is at the wide receiver position, PFF grades don't necessarily matter and don't necessarily translate as much to the next level as they do in other positions. So, just because it was good 1 year in college doesn't mean it's going to guarantee to be good in the NFL level. But if you look over at his PFF grades at the NFL level, it's still pretty solid. 72 overall grade, a little bit lower in terms of just pure, passing, so as in passing plays, so when he's running a route, slightly lower, but still, again, above 70, you'll definitely take that for a rookie. The really only concerning stat you would look at here would be 229 total snaps. Did not have a high snap count. This was, of course, due to him getting a ACL injury in the middle of the year. He had to, it's not like he was getting a ton of snaps before that, but then the ACL injury happened, and he was out for the year. But I thought he showed some flashes in college and in the NFL that lead me to believe he could be a productive NFL player. So let's talk about what we know about him so far. And first, let's start off with some college film. Like a play like this, for example, could be a good, I think a good showcase of what Robinson was able to do so effectively at Kentucky, where he's going to be a slot receiver on this play. He's the number 2 receiver on this one. So, there's 3 receivers lined up to the quarterback's left. He is the middle guy in that scenario. And you see the route on his screen. It's a one-on-one matchup. And, these are the kind of things that Robinson did really effective in college, was he would sometimes get favorable one-on-one matchups due to the fact that, he wouldn't be on the outside. A lot of teams would have their, they have their outside corners and then their slot corners, and this sometimes helped out Robinson. So when this play begins, the ball is going to get thrown in that direction, and you see just how open Robinson is at this point. I mean, he is, he's got a clear step on the corner who he is going up against, and his quickness and speed was definitely a big part of what made him an effective college player. As you see, this throw is going to be a good one, and Robinson is able to make the catch and pick up a big gain. So just because he's the quote-unquote slot receiver in college doesn't mean that that's all he's doing is getting these 7-yard routes. You can get explosive plays even as a slot receiver. And also just stuff like this, too, where you would have the sort of more traditional slot receiver type plays, where it's going to be just a quick wide receiver screen to Robinson. That's the way this play is designed to work. And watch how when it begins, you see, again, quick flip to Robinson, well blocked at this point. You have a pretty good situation, and if he gets tackled right away, this was still an effective screen pass. You got like 5 yards or so, set up a third down and relatively short here. However, watch that move Robinson pulls off, the shiftiness he has to get around and, again, pick up the first down. That's not anything crazy. He didn't go for a touchdown or anything, but those are added value plays that Robinson brought to the table in Kentucky, and you do have to feel like if he gets a big enough sample size in the NFL, he could potentially bring those plays to the NFL as well, which is what they drafted him to do and why they liked him on the roster, is a guy who can just do those kind of things. And that's kind of the argument and kind of the discussion you have a lot of times when you're an NFL team is what exactly do you do when you have the 43rd overall pick? Do you just draft a wide receiver who has the most potential, or do you draft a wide receiver who you feel like, okay, maybe Robinson, he's 5'8", maybe he's never going to be Jamar Chase, but you know what? He can come in and still do things very well. We feel like he has a pretty high floor. Do you go after the high ceiling guy or the high floor guy? Well, they went after a guy who they feel like could be an effective player, and in the NFL, when he was out there, he was an effective player. Like, let's look at this play, for example. So what's going to happen on this one is it's going to be a relatively simple play. He is going to be someone who's currently lined up to the offense's right, but he's going to just sort of flash over to the left side of the field. The idea is with the zone coverage, there's only currently 2 eligible receivers lined up to the offense's left, and they're both going to be running further towards the right, meaning that maybe there will be an area that's cleared underneath the zone coverage to the offense's left. Watch how when this play begins, it is working. I mean, there is a defensive lineman who's reading this play effectively and trying to get in position to cover Robinson, and, listen, these defensive linemen are amazingly fast for their size, but still, wide receiver against a defensive lineman, you do expect the wide receiver to win that matchup. Jones is going to flip it to Robinson, and watch how he's able to blow by and pick up a good chunk of yards right there. Again, nothing crazy, but just being an effective role player. That's what they want him to be. That's what they drafted him to be, and if he can develop and become better than that, well then awesome, you've got even more value, but they're really drafting him to just be a solid player, and I think when he was out there, he did what they wanted him to do. I think he looked like the guy they drafted him to be, I thought. But also just like simple stuff like this, where it's going to be zone coverage. And it's, again, a very simple concept where you have one receiver who's running a deeper route, one receiver who's kind of running further deep, but sort of, 15 yards down the field out route type of play. That will be Robinson's route. And then you have an underneath route as well. And since, for Detroit, they kind of have guys either covering, over the middle or guys covering deep, the fact that you now have 3 different layers of receivers down the field in that certain section, hopefully one gets open, and usually it is the middle route, which would be Robinson on this play. But right when this play begins, one little thing Robinson does to really allow this play to work is watch how he kind of sells as though he's going over the middle. That's what it looks like he's doing right here. He kind of fakes as though he's going to be going over the middle, and because of that, you now have Detroit players making sure they, are covering underneath and further deep, but no one is prepared to cover that pocket towards the top left-hand corner of your screen, really, because, they don't realize that's where Robinson is going. So therefore, when Robinson does go up in that direction, he is able to get wide open and makes the catch. So again, one of those things where you could easily watch that play and say, okay, he ran his route, got wide open, more of a scheme thing than anything. And there's some truth to that. It was a good play call, but at the same time, he had to make the most of that good play call, and he did. So yeah, as a whole, I think that there's plenty of reason to be optimistic for Robinson. Again, coming off the ACL injury is going to be concerning. You never like to see that, but there's definitely hope that he could be a talented player. And so that's kind of my, I was curious about how he ended up being as a rookie, because we didn't really hear from him after some people were surprised by the draft pick. That's kind of the last we've heard of him. Well, hey, through, 250 snaps, about as good as you could hope for in that scenario. So at least that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Wan'Dale Robinson's quick-lived rookie season for the Giants? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.